Okay. Good evening. I call to order this regular meeting of the Carrabelle City Commission. It's Thursday, November the 4th, 2021, and it's 6:06 p.m. And this meeting is being conducted in the Carrabelle City Hall chambers, and we will open with a prayer by Commissioner Allen, and then I will lead with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our God and Father, we're so grateful that we can come together and work with these wonderful people in our city and all those that make this city work and be what it is. We ask you to be with everyone that is sick, that you can heal them, they can get back amongst us and carry out their lives and their work. We ask you also, Father, to bless us in our efforts to serve you and that you guide us through the walks of life. And we ask you in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm glad to see so many in attendance. Thank you for silencing your phone. We're starting, for those watching on Facebook, we started 6 minutes late because we had just a little bit of a technical problem, and we wanted to make sure that we started where everyone could see. And anyone wishing to speak here in the chambers during public comment or during discussion on an agenda item will need to complete a speaker card and submit that to Ms. Courtney, our administrator. Okay, on the consent agenda, we have the October 7th, 2021 regular meeting minutes, the October 13th, 2021 special meeting minutes, the October 21, 2021 special meeting minutes, attorney's invoices, and for the general fund and the CRA. And did everyone have a chance to review those items? And do we have a motion regarding that?
I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Allen.
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Mathis. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. All right, next we move to Commissioners' reports. Commissioner Brown, do you have anything for us?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Allen?
I have it in you now. Thank you.
Commissioner Mathis?
I have nothing.
Okay, and Commissioner Millender?
Not at this time.
All right, and I do, and it's a full page, as Commissioner Mathis always looks over my shoulder and sees, but it's in big font so I can read it. But I just want to send out a big thank you to the Carrabelle Police Department and the Franklin County Sheriff's Office for attending the memorial service of past Carrabelle Police Chief and past Franklin County Sheriff Deputy, Mr. Joe Ham. They paid honor to him for his years of service to both of those departments with a kind and thoughtful tribute, and I appreciated it. And moving forward, it appears that the CR 67 Tallahassee Street construction has finally come to an end, so we will need to proceed with the memorial signage for Officer David Patton on Highway 67, as requested by Joe Ham. And then the Roberts & Roberts Construction has reported this week that they will have all the materials on hand for the culvert repair on Ryan Drive, including the back-ordered head walls. They are currently conducting utility locations in the area, and construction repairs are scheduled to begin next week. As I explained in detail last month, the total cost of this project is $116,770. This total cost will be shared equally by the City of Carrabelle and Franklin County District 5. The final cost to each agency is $58,385. The city will fund its portion, $58,385, using the local option gasoline tax revenues. On Monday, County Commissioner Ward contacted me regarding my thoughts on lowering the speed limit on Northwest 11th Street, Ryan Drive, from 35 miles an hour to 25 miles per hour. We both agreed a lowered speed limit would make it much easier for law enforcement to enforce lower speeds along that stretch of roadway, and that lower speeds would result in much less wear and tear to the new culvert repairs and to the entire roadway. Finally, a lower speed for safety is needed in this residential area with numerous pedestrians using the sidewalk that adjoins 11th Street and Ryan Drive. And after being a homeowner on 11th Street for 20 years and witnessing constant speeding, many times in excess of 55 miles per hour, I will say I am for lowering the speed limit. Unfortunately, neither city nor county can or will take action because of the long-standing question regarding which government agency owns and has jurisdiction over Northwest 11th Street and Ryan Drive. It has two names. Don't ask me why, but as long as I've been here, it's always had two names. But anyway, Mr. Hartman, it appears that County Attorney Schuler will be contacting you, our city attorney, to begin undertaking a resolution. And I believe it's time that this ongoing dispute is resolved one way or another so that this stretch of roadway can be properly maintained by whichever agency it belongs to. So whatever it takes to discover that, we'll start that once we hear from County Attorney Schuler. I want to review the Baywood Drive issues in detail, but I'll address that under the engineer's report. And then yesterday, Courtney, Keisha, and I met with two DEO representatives from the Competitive Florida Partnership Program. They wanted to review the recently completed Carrabelle Economic Development Strategy, learn which goals had been completed to date, which goals we are currently working on, and what our next steps are and how they can help us with those next steps. We discussed the old Carrabelle water plant building in depth, how a new roof can be funded for that building, and how to fund rehab of the entire building. And they will provide us with contact information for possible funding sources. Thank you all very much, and I wish everyone a happy, happy Thanksgiving. Okay, and now we will go to the city attorney's report. Okay, has none. All right, we'll move on then to the city administrator's report.
All right, during the month of October, we removed 2 derelict vessels that was funded through an FWC grant from the Carrabelle River, and also the remnants of 1 vessel that was not funded, but the city went ahead and paid for the removal of that vessel. That grant reimbursement has been submitted to FWC for reimbursement, and we're just waiting to hear back if they need any additional information, but it's all been submitted. Our House Appropriations Project request for Baywood Drive is ready to be submitted. The deadline is November the 10th, and we're reaching out to people in the Baywood area for letters of support. So if you guys know anyone that lives on Baywood Drive that would give us a letter of support, we would appreciate that. We talked about this last month, and I didn't have a quote in yet, but a quote to place pylons at McKissick Beach parking area where the vehicles are trespassing onto the beach. So we got a quote. It's for $3,000, and it's 160 foot of pilings. They'll be placed every 6 foot apart with the ropes in between. So that was $3,000 for 160 foot. They would use the used pylons, but they would be in good shape and buried down so that they couldn't be knocked over or pulled out. Does anybody got any questions on that?
Yes, I do. You said how far apart would they
He
be?
said in his quote, he said 6 foot, which I kind of thought was a little much because I don't know if they can drive through 6 foot. So we may want to ask him to put those shorter distance, maybe 4 foot apart.
Well, we're worried about like off-road vehicles.
Yeah, OHVs would go through it, but it'd be tight for a vehicle,
It'd be
standard
tight for-
vehicle.
for
And he does say that he'll put the rope in between
a
them.
four-wheeler could get through it.
My,
You know.
I got a UTV that, Polaris, and it'll go through it. I haul it on a 6 foot trailer,
Right,
and I have plenty of room on each side to go on there, so it'll go through it.
Do you think we should ask him to, well, we haven't decided whether or not to do it.
Now, he says he will put double rope and put piling caps on each one of the pilings.
Okay, piling, that's good, piling caps. But I think it should be maybe a little closer together. I just worry about, I mean, 6 feet is good for a vehicle, but,
right, I understand, yeah, these four-wheelers and what have you.
Well, a couple of questions I have is, vehicles is, I think, is what we having problems
Main-
with.
mhm.
That is our
Not
main.
necessarily off-road vehicles, UTVs and golf carts and things of that nature. And if we tighten the width of the pilings, that's gonna mean more pilings, more cost.
Or less footage.
I didn't
coverage.
realize that we were having to do 160 foot. I thought we only had a
He,
couple of.
he met with Dustin. We have some pylons out there, or not pylons, some posts, and they're being pulled up. So we just met with him and asked him to give us a price on doing a perimeter around it.
Okay.
And we
And that's
could-
what he came up, him and Dustin came up with the 160 foot.
And we could do that in phases if you
Yeah,
want.
we could do less, or, you know, we don't have to do 160. That was
From what
just
I
the,
saw, they were going through that, particularly that open sandy area, more so than anywhere else. And I thought that's what we were having the most problem with, was right there, but,
they seem to move.
well, that's
You
what I'm.
fix one spot and they move to the next one.
That's what I'm afraid of, if they do, I'm thinking that 160 foot area, I think I have it in mind where they're looking at. And probably what they're gonna do is just go a little bit further to the west where we don't have any, and go across, come around.
Eventually, I would like to see it start on each side of the access area or parking area at the property line, and then, as Mr. Hartman says, the city's responsibility is to block access on our property, through our property. And if we block that in a U shape at the property line, right there where the leased property adjoins private property, then Mr. Hartman has said in the past that we have done our duty to keep vehicles off the beach.
Right.
Yes.
So really, that should be, I don't know where they have the 160 mark, you know, exactly where that, but that should be the end goal, really. And if we want to do that in phases and start in the one spot there, the problem area, that's fine with me. He's probably got a price, if he doesn't do the whole 160, he's probably got a price per piling or something like that.
I'm sure he does.
Where we walk through to go to the beach, could they make those two pilings closer together, maybe like 4 feet?
Yeah, we can ask him for
Because
that.
that won't have ropes, so that would be an easy access for people to drive through if it's 6 feet.
Right. Yeah, we can ask for whatever y'all want.
Okay. So, you want to start in a phase then, try to do this in phases and eventually take in the whole area, all of the property openings that belong to the city there at the end? We could start on that one west side where the problem area is.
That's what I would suggest, is just starting right there, what I'm calling the end, I think what you're calling the west, Mayor, is right there at that end where they're actually going through, pulling those couple down, which I went over and looked, and that seems to be where they're going through. I'd start at that end right there and just kind of block that, and let's see what happens and do it in phases. That's my suggestion.
Okay.
The rest of you folks may have a different suggestion.
So do we want to have a motion or just direct Courtney just to follow? We can just direct you, just follow through with that.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Do y'all have any other questions or items for Courtney?
I still
Okay.
gotta
Okay,
Um,
excuse me.
Our street signs are being replaced. We were reported last month that we needed to replace street signs, so the road crew is going out and they're looking for street signs that are down and replacing those. And I'll go ahead with the city clerk's report
Okay.
too, since she's not here tonight. We have, CRA meeting November the 16th at 1:30 PM. We have a planning and zoning meeting, 2 o'clock on November the 18th. It's tentative. We're waiting to see if we have anything on the agenda. City Hall will be closed November the 25th and 26th for Thanksgiving. And Ms. Tamara's asked me to make an announcement that November the 20th, the Carrabelle History Museum is going to be hosting a speaker on Buck O'Neill and the black baseball in Florida. It's going to be at C Quarters at 10 o'clock a.m. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Okay, and then we will move to Enovia's report. Mr. Russell Large. Enovia is our engineering firm.
Mayor, can I interrupt?
Yes.
Just one quick question about road signs. I understood Courtney to say that they were looking for vandalized and down road signs. I see numerous signs that are illegible. They're weathered out. You can't read them anymore. Are they looking at those?
They are.
Okay.
Anything that they think needs to be replaced, they're going to have replaced.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Russell?
All right, thank you. On our Lighthouse project, we are coordinating with DEP and the Water Management District to award that project as we discussed at the last special meeting. On our DOT project, The Hill, this would be the 9th Street addition from Gulf Avenue to US 98. We have received cost from the contractor. We've prepared a change order document for that. However, there is a drainage easement that we need to require, and we're working through the owner and an owner's representative to obtain that drainage easement. We need to do that before we can execute that contract. I did include a memo with the package that describes the amount that the city would need to participate in to complete that project from Gulf Avenue to US 98. And the city's portion is just under $200,000. And that's in a memo that was attached with the status memo tonight. And then on Baywood, I will mention that I did forward the application form to Preston Wilson. That document is due on the 10th, but I went ahead and sent it to him so he can have a chance to review it and understand that we can supplement that with those letters that you spoke about, Courtney. Okay, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, I just want to, first of all, I'll just say real quick, we're gonna, on this additional memo regarding the additional complete 9th Street paving, I'm gonna review this more in depth and possibly get on a conference call with you and Courtney.
Okay.
Okay, so, we have a good handle on that. Then, on the Baywood Drive, I've circulated requests for letters of support from several residents along Baywood Drive, and I have I'm wanting them. I have actually written a sample letter. I've contacted them via email and Facebook private message, and I'm receiving no response. I've coordinated with Courtney. They're aware of it, that they are supposed to contact Courtney, send their sample letter. Courtney will print out a hard copy so they could come up here and sign it. Trying to make it as simple as possible. Receiving no response from the residents or any property owners that adjoin Baywood Drive that I have been able to contact. And then I contacted the Franklin County Board of County Commissioners. They sent a letter of request, a letter of support. And Ms. Tamara from the Carrabelle Waterfront Partnership, and we'll need that probably by Monday if possible. The project is estimated by the engineers at today's prices at 1.5, and if we wait another million, and if we wait another year, it could be 1.7 million, maybe 2 million. Yesterday when we met with the Department of Economic Opportunity representatives, we discussed this, although it wasn't on the agenda to discuss it. We discussed this road and possible funding options, and they talked about USD loan grant program, but those programs are usually associated with projects that have a economic impact outcome and job creation. But, I'm receiving a lot of complaints about it. I don't know about the rest of you, but I am. And there is another option, and I just want to put it out there where folks can hear what the option is, and that option is Florida Statute 1973632, and it's titled Uniform Collection Method. And it will allow for a special tax assessment on properties that are the sole beneficiary of a capital project improvement including stormwater infrastructure, road surfacing, sidewalks, and streetlights. The infrastructure needed along Baywood Drive would fall under the category of special capital assessment. This can be done through a special assessment bond or loan, meaning the loan payback amount would be collected solely from the property owners along Baywood Drive. The payment amount would be fixed according to the payback schedule at loan initiation and ends when the affected property owners pay off the borrowed amount, which could, at this amount, somewhere between 1.5 million and 2 million. It could take 30 to 40 years to pay off. The special assessment payback would be mandatory, is allowed by home rule powers, and the assessment can be collected on the property tax bills of the affected benefiting property owners. Simple count using the property appraiser's website shows approximately 40 properties along Baywood Drive. So this is an option that if all funding options for grants to fund this are exhausted, Mr. Hartman, this is an option that we could approach. The conditions out there are pretty rough and not getting any better. So, and I have a copy of that, what the special assessment qualifications and Florida statute if anybody wants that. And then also, I passed this drawing out to all of the commissioners, and this is regarding the most northern section of Ryan Drive. And it's just a one-block portion of roadway that's riddled with deep potholes. We're receiving numerous complaints by nearby residents that have to use that. And I feel sure that after paving the Ryan Drive, which is $58,000 and change, from our log account, that there would be sufficient funding in the log account to pave this one block right here of roadway. And I would request, Mr. Large, you're asking for a change order on the one block of 2nd Street down by the library.
Correct,
Could
yes.
you ask North Florida
Florida.
Asphalt to also give us a quote? And can they do this as a change order, although it's way in North Carrabelle?
Yes, they can.
Okay, just to do this one block. And he'll come back and let us know what that will cost, and we can make a decision on whether or not to pave that. And at least now the residents that live out there that have been complaining know that I have asked for it. Okay, and then I just want to remind Mr. Large that we're asking for the cost for paving of the library parking spaces, just to break that out so we can share that with the county if we're
Okay.
able to
Very
do
good.
that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone have any other questions or comments? All right, we will move forward then to the advisory board reports, and Ms. Tamara, I didn't receive a report. Okay, do you have anything briefly to say or to report on?
The brownfield study that where the land at the old water plant, you know, it's not
Yes,
been
ma'am.
cleared by the state, and they actually came down this week and went there just to survey it, check it out, and see what they had to start with. So they're starting that work. The state pays for that, contracts for it, and does everything with it. So I'm hoping they'll get on with it and we'll get it done so the city can benefit from being able to use it.
Okay, and that started in November of 2013.
I was there, I remember.
And I was too, and I actually looked up the very first email. That was November 2013. Okay, Carrabelle Aviation Advisory Board report, and we received a copy of that. And I'll just let you know that on October the 15th, I signed the agreement with the FDOT on the aviation side for the upcoming grant for Phase 1 and Phase 2 that will do the design and planning of the taxiway and design and planning of the additional hangars. And so that will be going on in 2021 and 2022. All right. Do y'all have any questions or comments regarding the Ms. Tamara's report or the Aviation Advisory Board report? Okay. All right, then we will move on to the public hearing for Ordinance 485, and that is, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hartman.
Right. This is first reading, does not require any action, relates to the increase in water and wastewater impact fees, TAP fees. Ordinance 485 by title, an ordinance of the City of Carrabelle, Florida, providing for an amendment of Ordinance 434 pertaining to water and wastewater sewer impact TAP fees reflected on Table 4 of the ordinance, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, to the extent of such conflict, and establishing an effective date.
All right, and this is the second hearing, and we had a little workshop on this as well. It raises our water and sewer tap fees slightly, and it's been advertised in the newspaper, correct? And for both hearings, and advertised that this was going to be on the agenda for public comment. So do we have a motion to approve or disapprove of 485 pertaining to our water and sewer tap fees?
I do believe this
Ordinance.
is first reading.
This is first reading?
I have it on here as first reading. I think
what
we
I've got,
worked, we
too.
talked about
Okay.
it, but we didn't have the first reading of the ordinance. Yep. Just verifying.
All right. Do you, Courtney, do you know? Okay.
Hang on, I can look at the agenda from last month. We had the special meeting, but it wasn't on that.
And I could be wrong. Mhm.
You're not usually.
I have been wrong. Sometimes I get my notes wrong for the meetings, unfortunately.
We didn't read it.
Okay, so this is a first reading. All right. So this is a first reading. Disregard my request for a motion, but we will have second reading next month, and then this is to be effective on January 1st, 2022, and be prepared for a motion next month. All right, thank you,
What
Mr.
day,
Hartman.
January what? First?
January 1st, 2022, and then we'll vote on it at the December 2nd meeting. Okay, thank y'all for looking that up. All right, new business. Item 1, approve, disapprove preliminary site plan for 206 West 10th Street, Choppy Pizza Company. And are they here this evening? Do you have something you'd like to show us or present to us? Okay. Courtney, do you want to tell us about the P&Z board and what went on?
This came through the P&Z board last month, and it was approved or recommended for approval.
I
Okay.
make a motion to approve.
I
Okay,
second.
And I do have it on the screen if you just
all right.
want to see what
And
they're doing.
they're bringing a manufactured building in. Okay, all right. And so we have Commissioner Brown and Commissioner Mathis.
Mathis first.
And that's what, thank y'all for keeping me straight. So Mathis, Commissioner Mathis made the motion, and Commissioner Brown seconded to approve the preliminary site plan for 206 West 10th Street. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. All right, we look forward to it. And item 2, under new business, approve, disapprove, approve the preliminary site plan for 810 Highway 98 East, and this is requested by Mr. Tony Smith. Is Mr. Tony Smith here? Yes, would you like to come to the podium and speak, or? Okay. So there it is right there, and he wants to put this 30 by 60 building on the back side of the property? Is
That
that?
is correct.
Okay.
This also came before planning and zoning last month and was recommended for approval.
All right, and I have a question, and I kind of discussed it slightly with the attorney. We were just, looking over it. But I don't understand why, with all due respect, why is this not required to have setbacks? How is this?
I had the same question.
Okay, how is this building being put right on the property line, on the back property line, and on the two side property lines? It's as wide as the property.
According to the city clerk who reviewed the plan and reviewed the requirements, that there are no front setbacks on highway, in commercial on Highway 67 and 98. Or not, there are front setbacks, there's no side and rear setbacks.
I couldn't find any either.
So that you have to have your front setback, but you're not required any side or any rear setbacks.
How do they maintain their building, on the side of their building? How do they do that without going on other properties? Certainly, we can't change it midstream, but I'm just,
Well,
curious how this works.
that building, I'm actually gonna have it within 6 inches inside. And then I've got letters from both neighbors as far as we can get on their property as far as maintaining or building.
Okay. And then the parking, how are you going to access your parking?
98?
Okay, from 98 on your property?
Yes.
Okay.
And he was required to get a permit from DOT, which I think
We got all that.
Okay, for an ingress egress?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
I have one question, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Since it's a commercial building, Courtney, is it required an inspection by the fire marshal?
I'm not sure. I know it would be required by the building inspector. I'd have to check into that.
And where I'm going to, I don't have a problem, we don't have, and again, I'm with the mayor, we're not gonna change in midstream. But since it's a commercial building, if it's required by the fire marshal, I don't know what they would run into with the lack of setbacks, cause hypothetically, the adjoining property owners could build within the 6-inch limit. And by the fire marshal, that may not be allowable that close together. I mean, that's just talking. And if they're required by the fire marshal, I don't know. Again, I'm not wanting to change in midstream. I don't have a problem with his building, but that's just a thought. And if
Well,
it's
this
a
is the
commercial
site
building.
plan, and he would have to meet all of the other building requirements,
Right.
whatever they are.
And I just now see Anovia's name up there, so Russell, you have reviewed this, right, sir?
Forgive me, but I have not reviewed this.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if the clerk says that it meets our guidelines, I mean, we have to
Right.
go with it at this moment. We certainly can't change our codes on when he's in the application process.
I have no intention with my
No.
question there for that.
I
My
don't-
question was, if the fire marshal gets involved, since it's a
I
commercial
understand.
building, he may run into that obstacle, I don't know.
And the clerk
And-
says that she would have to check into it, but that they do have to meet all the requirements for final, and this is preliminary, so.
Okay.
I've heard of some instances throughout the county where the fire marshal gets involved in, the state fire marshal, not the local, but the state fire marshal gets involved in commercial structures. So, and that's just a heads up to this guy, cause I mean, I'm not trying to change our
No.
rules in midstream by any means.
No, we wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Not during application process,
No.
once it's begun.
No.
And so, Mr. Hartman, though, we could take a look at this and see if this is something that we may want to amend and
In the
put some.
future.
Yes, sir, in the future, not during this application process. If you don't mind, if you could, kind
Well,
of.
I think, I've got to believe that it was a policy decision way back in the day to have just continuous storefronts like we have on 67,
Correct.
right? And if that is something we don't want, then that, certainly I can redraft it however you all direct me to. That we have
Okay.
some, it just did seem odd, but we just haven't had that much development of that type.
New
along there.
buildings on 98.
Yeah.
Cause in the downtown area on 98 Marine Street, we're super close.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but those were built a long time ago.
You can't even fit in there sideways. So,
You can if you shimmy.
Okay.
So is
All
there
right.
a cross
Some
street
people can.
for that property? Like 98 and what?
It's just 98. There's
So
Seventh
what's
on
next
1A.
to it?
Seventh is a block or a lot over.
On the, is that or west? Is the little mini mall,
Oh, okay.
East.
west.
West.
And then the other side is that old church, is that right?
So
Or
between
somewhere
7th and
right.
8th?
Yeah.
It's in that area, and the lot has been cleared on the north side of 98. Okay.
Mayor,
All right.
as it currently stands, I'm gonna make a motion, we approve.
All right,
I'll second.
okay. All right, we have a motion to approve the preliminary site plan for 810 Highway 98 East by Commissioner Millender, second by Commissioner Mathis. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. Very good. Let's see what we got here. Okay, now we're going to move on to item 3, under new business. Approve, disapprove the property transfer agreement between the Franklin County School Board and the City of Carrabelle. Mr. Hartman has sent that agreement to all of us for our review. Has everyone had a chance to take a good look at that? Do we have questions or comments to Mr. Hartman?
No.
Any concerns regarding that agreement? Just want to make sure before we approve that, and then you would submit that to Mr. Lanier or to the county, the school board attorney?
Yes, what I'll do, and I had just a very quick conversation with Ms. Duncan, who I believe is the current school board attorney. And what I did was, on this agreement, tracked the agreement that they had prepared out of their office all the way back in 2008, when we took I think we traded property a couple times with them. So it's similar to that agreement, so it should be somewhat smooth in that this is the same agreement we've used to swap property and transfer property before.
Okay.
I do have a question,
Mhm.
and I'll apologize first. I obviously have missed it, I didn't get to see the agreement. This was an outright purchase, am I correct?
Yes, and
We're
this
not
was
swapping anything.
correct. No swap. We're calling it. They're transferring it to us.
For
$10
$100.
for
$10.
$10.
$10,
Yeah,
okay.
$10. It's
Yeah, we
the
threw a
nominal.
couple numbers around, that's correct, yeah, good.
And yep, just straightforward. So
And
the
it's
deed and the
5
transfer.
acres.
Yep.
5 point some odd acres, yeah.
And I have the survey, so what we'll do is attach the survey to the agreement to prepare the deed.
And send it to the school board attorney, and they can review it. If they want to make some revisions, then they can do that and send it back to us.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Move to approve.
Okay, very good. We have a motion to approve that agreement between the Franklin County School Board and the City of Carrabelle by Commissioner Millender. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And that second is by Commissioner Brown. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. Okay, we're going to move on now to item 4 under new business. Discussion and possible action regarding development of a new full-time position in the police department. We discussed this briefly under the CRA, at the CRA meeting as well. This evening, we have Chief Schuman, Mr. Chief Kevin Schuman with us. And this will be a discussion regarding a new job description that would be community policing and code enforcement officer that would have several duties. I believe all of us had had a chance to speak with Chief Schuman and our city administrator regarding the job description and possible funding options. So, Chief, would you like to speak to us first, or how?
Sure.
Okay.
I think everybody kind of gets an idea of what we're trying to accomplish with this new position. With the job task and the duties that were placed into this position. It's going to be a little bit of everything with what we have going on with the city of Carrabelle.
And would you make sure your microphone is turned on?
There we go.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And so, it's just something we've been looking into. I've been working on this for a couple of months now with a lot of the complaints that we get from citizens, a lot of the issues that we face in the city of Carrabelle. And so, just meeting with the city administrator, Keisha as well, many a times on job duties, job tasks, job description, that sort of thing as to what can help them out with some of the things that they have to deal with on a regular basis. This is just something that we think would be beneficial to the citizens of Carrabelle. So it's part of it is code enforcement. I know that's terminology that a lot of people don't like hearing, but that's not the most part of the job. That's just a small portion of the job. There's other things in there with boat ramp enforcement, parking violations, building and planning violations through the building department. Law enforcement stuff, this person would be a law enforcement officer as well, so they'll be doing some of that as well. Parades, festivals, that sort of thing, filling in when needed. And animal control stuff. There's issues with animal controls that we deal with on a regular basis. And the biggest thing is community policing. You know, that's one thing that we have to look forward of getting back to is being more accessible to the community, the business owners, people that visit. We want people to come here, enjoy themselves, have a good time, and come back. That's the main thing, is to come back and want to visit this area and feel like they've had a good time and a good stay. So.
Okay. At this point, do we have questions or comments regarding this proposal for a new full-time position with a new job description in the police department?
Didn't we get this started when we talked about animal control or something like that?
We just discussed it. We never
No, but
said.
this is what brought it up, though, wasn't it? To have
Well,
somebody that was available?
some animal control, and actually I had mentioned that I had flyers were being distributed in the public and distributed from the post office with my name on it and my phone number and Chief Schuman's name on it and his phone number, complaining that we are the city of Carrabelle, which does have a animal control ordinance that we all worked on in a workshop. I don't think Ms. Brown was with us, but we worked diligently on that animal control ordinance, and it's an ordinance and a law of the city of Carrabelle, and that the community came here and had input on that, but we don't enforce it, and we don't have enough law enforcement officers to enforce it or to help enforce it, to help track down dogs running at large and to stop people and remind them that their dog needs to be on a leash, that it's an ordinance. And this is something that, but anyway, what I was getting at is that
Well,
these
that's-
people distributing this, we're not
Well, that's-
enforcing it, and they've called for my resignation because they've called for the chief's resignation and my resignation because I don't enforce the ordinance.
Right.
For the folks that have called for my resignation, I'm asking for the ordinance to be enforced, and I'm going to have to lobby these commissioners to try to get a officer to help us enforce the animal control ordinance.
And I thought
Okay.
that's what brought this up. That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes,
One
So
of the items.
he would be partly available then to do that.
Yes.
Certainly.
That's.
With the
what I
job
said.
task and duties for the job description it's a wide area. It's several things.
Yeah,
It's not just code enforcement. It's not just animal control. It's every little thing. It's parking violations. It's when he's driving around, he sees an issue with a stop sign or a street light out or a broken sidewalk. You know, reporting these things, getting to the right person to get this stuff taken care of.
that's right.
Checking on the parks, making sure that the parks are taken care of and that there's not people loitering and public drunkenness down at the pavilions, and it just goes on and on. And as we get into this thing, there'll be more added. And so it's just something that's needed. It's just something that we just really need to look at and try to get in motion. So
Well,
we
that was
can
the
address a lot
point
of this.
then, that we can have somebody that do a lot of things rather than just be paid for one single job that might happen every 2 weeks.
Right, yes, sir.
So-
Yes, sir. And the boat ramp stuff, that's part of the job description as well, too. As everybody
Yeah.
knows, people come here to fish, and that's one of the things that draw them to this area.
And he'd have the
From-
full authority that,
Yes, he'll be collecting
have
money, he'll be
enforce
doing
any
parking
law.
violations. Citations, if there are parking violations, he can write citations, because he'll be a law enforcement officer, which is, okay. That's what a lot of our issues are. We have signs down there that says, don't park unless you have a boat trailer. There's people that park in there, and there's nobody around to enforce that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there's, some apprehension in the public regarding code enforcement, and there's really no need to have apprehension of that code enforcement portion of this that would be part-time. And like I had mentioned in the CRA meeting, back in 2016-17, I requested budget funding for a part-time code enforcer, which we did get on the budget at that time. In 2017-18, we also budgeted for a part-time code enforcer, but I was unable to get the commission to follow through with hiring because they were concerned with retaliation. But there's no need to be concerned with retaliation. If your elected officials are going to be scared of retaliation, well, then why are we elected officials? What good are we if we're going to cow down to retaliation? But it's not a revengeful or vindictive process. It's merely enforcement of our community standards, our laws, our ordinances, our codes that we already have in place. And a lot of our ordinances and codes were developed through workshops, like our animal control ordinance, our noise ordinance. I mean, we have had workshop after workshop on ordinances that we've developed, and they just didn't come to pass all of a sudden. And so the residents are aware of these ordinances and codes and laws. And, you'll have a code enforcement officer come up and say, you're parking on the sidewalk, you're putting heavy equipment on the sidewalk can't tolerate it, and they give them a warning. But that's not the end of it. Code enforcement, you have to go back, and if they're given a citation, you give them 15 or 30 days, and then the officer has to go back, or the administrative staff. It's an ongoing process to help these people, advise them when amnesty day is. And in the CRA district, we will have we have techniques and ways in the CRA district to also help with code enforcement, like with privacy fences. If you have privacy fences, there can be no code enforcement because it can't be seen. And most of this is really paying attention to the right-of-ways. We have, Ms. Kelly, I saw you kind of frown, but we have put a privacy fence up around a dumpster in the CRA district to hide that from the public, and it really made a big difference. The CRA district funded that, and it can be done. And these issues aren't specific to Carrabelle. Franklin County is currently undertaking, and we're all aware of it, workshops all throughout the county. And here's one of their flyers in black and white. They had a workshop on October the 20th, and I talked to one of the commissioners that attended it, and their concerns, and they had 19 attendees by the commissioner, and all were positive there regarding code enforcement, and their concerns were trash, litter, illegal dumping, deteriorated buildings and houses that are unsafe, and concerns for health, safety, and welfare. They, over in the East Point area, have a lot of campers that are on one site where septics can't handle it. Their illegal use of right-of-ways over there, building code and permit enforcement, which is something that is on the job description here that Chief Schuman has developed, that would assist administrative staff on the building codes and permitting, to notice if permits are displayed on new construction. And also, data entry. The newly developed building department needs, someone 4 hours a week to do data entry, and that could also fall under this job description. And also on code enforcement, there's a lot of record keeping that's involved with that. So then also, I just received on the way out an email where last night Franklin County conducted another code enforcement workshop on St. George Island where 46 people attended, and all of them were positive regarding code enforcement. Of course, on St. George Island, it's not Carrabelle, and they have many different concerns than we do. But some of their concerns that were the same as ours would be like abandoned houses and buildings that are unsafe and a hazard to the public that need to be condemned or removed, and which we have done that in the past few years since I've been mayor. Dumping along roadsides such as furniture and household items, trash in general, littering, automotive junk and unstable cars in the right-of-ways, and they have concerns there about open fires where people burn garbage, and that's we have a code against that. So, and folks can be warned about the hazards of that.
Well, I'll move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve this new job description that's been presented to us by Chief Schuman. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, that motion is by Commissioner Allen for the new full-time position in the police department that's going to be overseen by Chief Schuman. That motion's made by Commissioner Allen, second by Commissioner Mathis. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
I do actually have more discussion.
Okay, all right, so all right, is there any discussion?
Yes.
All right.
So I kind of feel like since the majority of the funding is going to be through the CRA,
Uh-huh.
I mean, I would have liked to make a motion to table it until we have our next CRA meeting, because that's where the majority of the funding is coming from. So to me, it seemed like we're kind of jumping the gun here.
Well, we can't now, we did learn in our conference that we went to that community policing has to be done through the commission. You can fund it. The CRA has the power to fund it, but community policing in the CRA is a directive that comes from the commission. So we can ask that the motion is, I would suggest maybe to amend the motion tentative to sufficient funding from the CRA district. How does that sound? No, you don't like that?
No.
Okay.
No, and you all just went to the class, so you're fresher than I am on it. But my understanding would be that it would be approved by the city commission, and then the CRA is going to reimburse the city for that employee's
A portion.
Mm-hmm. So definitely I should say this, let's pretend the CRA does not want to do this. Then easily the commission can just back away from this position at the next meeting. I mean, you're not bound by it if the CRA takes a different position on it, I think. So I think the motion's fine. I don't think it.
I still have more discussion.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I do feel like we have options here. This is a lot of money, almost $64,000 for a whole new position, when I think we really need to think about this. I'm not against code enforcement. We have codes in place. I agree with enforcing them. But we also learned at the CRA meeting that our current police officers can assist Keisha in delivering these notices, following up with these notices, that is an option. Mm-hmm. And if we didn't go with this, that could still be an option. But creating a whole new, it's a lot of money when certain things that are in this job description could already be happening, and I personally don't understand why we're waiting to do them. And I didn't know that the police officers could be helping with code enforcement until the CRA meeting, and when I learned that, it kinda changed my opinion on things a little bit.
Oh, I don't remember that discussion. Now, police officers, community policing is special policing
Right.
that is special to the CRA district. That is a special attention to the facilities and the businesses in the CRA district. That does not happen outside the CRA district.
When I talked to Chief Schuman, he said it would be, this would be policing for all of the city limits.
Policing and
Right.
the fact that he's gonna be patrolling in that,
Yeah.
in that area. But as far as like the CRA, it will be, meeting with business owners, making
Right.
sure businesses are secure during the day, early morning hours. Finding out any, concerns or issues from owners, just being seen visibly. That's, years ago, that's the way it was. It was, you had a beat that you walked, and that's what part of community policing was. But as far as the position itself, yes, he's still a law enforcement officer. Yeah, he still will be responsible for the city, as far as that goes.
Exactly.
So, and just to clarify, that's $64,000 total labor cost. That's not a $64,000 salary.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, but that, and I do have some comments. I wasn't gonna make any, but since it's opened up, I would like to make some reason why my vote is. We were able to do the rollback rate this year on the budget for the first time in a long time. I think we're gonna be stretching it. Money's a concern, big concern. The real estate market's up. We're getting some building permit money in. It's gonna happen just like it did in '05 and '06. It's gonna crash, and we're gonna lose a bunch of tax money that we're not getting now. It's gonna happen sooner or later, and I don't have a magic ball to tell you when. So I'm concerned about money, and also the duties and responsibilities. Chief Schuman and I talked about it privately before this, a couple weeks ago, are exactly what his officers' duties are now. And Carrabelle's small. Carrabelle's not large. And I feel like that our current staffing of 5 officers that we have, they're patrolling 24 hours a day. This additional position is not being proposed to patrol 24 hours a day. One person can. However he schedules that individual, where it'll be nighttime, daytime, whenever. That's just gonna be an 8-hour shift person, or a 12-hour shift, ever how he arranges it. And I just feel like Carrabelle's small, and we're not ready to do that. And I have some concern about some of the other aspects of the code enforcement, and I'm not totally against code enforcement, and we do have some code enforcement now. And our code enforcement is really done by complaint. We don't have anybody riding around particularly that's going around and just pinpointing every little detail. That's done by complaint, and there's code enforcement being handled now by our current law enforcement. And the dog, the animal control, it's being handled by our current law enforcement that we have, that Chief Schuman has someone on duty 24 hours a day. So I still can't, with good conscience, in the pit of my stomach, vote for an additional position at this time. I just currently can't see us justifying it. That's just my position.
And I gave it a ton of thought. I spoke to several of the residents, because this was really confusing, the way it was put on the CRA and this agenda, so I had a ton of questions, y'all know. So I spoke to a lot of people, spoke to the chief, spoke to Courtney, and I agree with Commissioner Millender that it's just, we have a full staff, which we haven't had in a very long time. And we've already moved 2 part-time officers, 2 full-times this year. So bringing on I think it's just too soon to bring on a whole nother officer when we saw how tight the budget was. I do understand that when we did the budget, we made salary arrangements for a deputy chief. And I know that Chief Schuman really needs a deputy chief and would like to hire a deputy chief and would be able to do that if we create this position. But what I think we need to think about is, if that is the biggest need, then hire the deputy chief, and if we have an officer that isn't working out as well, you know, maybe that is something to consider, but just creating a new position and spending all this money so that we have the budget to do the deputy chief, I just don't think that's in our best interest right now.
Okay,
One other thing,
all right.
Mayor,
if my memory is the way it ought to be,
after listening to what I've heard,
yeah,
I'd like to rescind my vote.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Okay, excuse me.
this all came about by trying to get somebody to take care of the dogs and the cats and do it. And since we do need other enforcement officers in other places, we thought we could combine the two, and that's why we made it this motion. And, that's the position I hold.
Okay,
And I
so,
believe we need it.
all right, and I just want to refer back to the rollback rate, just so that the public understands. The rollback rate allowed the city to continue to collect the same amount of tax revenues that the city collected in the year before, this year in 2021. Now, next year, in 2022, the city will collect the exact same tax revenues as in 2021. We have no reduction in revenues. With all due respect to the new commissioner, the budget seems tight. The budget is always tight. It doesn't matter how much or how little money you have, the budget is always tight. And I will refer the commissioners back to, so we have as much money, first of all, to spend in this next fiscal year, which isn't enough money. It's never enough money, but we have the same amount as we had in the last fiscal year. I will refer the commission back to October of 2019, where we were already into the budget year and had already approved the budget, but we came back and we gave a police officer a $1.50 an hour raise. We gave the chief a $2 increase. We gave an evidence custodian a $50 an hour increase. We gave the finance clerk a $1.50 an hour increase. We gave the city clerk and administrator 50 cent an hour increase. To probationary employees a $1 increase. 75% hour increase to the finance commissioner, and that was all, finance administrator, and that was all approved. And that was retroactive. We were already into the budget year. And then we even came back in December of 2019 and gave another 50 cent per hour increase to the administrator and the clerk as retroactive pay. So it's not uncommon to develop a job position mid-year and to have expenses regarding salaries mid-year, just so that we all understand that. I do feel like that at the very least, a part-time code enforcement officer on a complaint-driven and basis for personal complaints regarding code enforcement on personal property and continued code enforcement of the right-of-ways, continued code enforcement of our animal control laws, our noise ordinances, public nuisance ordinances is needed. And I have felt that ever since I came on board here. I will let the public know that I have requested this time and time again over the years, and it appears to not be accepted by the commission, no matter how the commission changes. But I will say that the commission should not be feared of retaliation, because you cannot be good leaders and you cannot govern if you're afraid of retaliation. And you shouldn't be afraid of not being reelected, because you cannot be a good leader and govern if you're afraid of not being reelected. So I see that we have one comment. Ms. Kelly?
I apologize for being late, but I would ask, I didn't hear the beginning. Chief, it's nice to meet you. I haven't met you before. It seems to me that if indeed the chief came with a presentation and a request for an additional officer, particularly specifically for code enforcement, that he must feel that there is a need for that effort. And it seems to me that by saying, for the commission to say no, it's a slap in the face to the enforcement officer, to the enforcement leader that we have chosen and have elected or have paid as the officer in charge. If someone comes and says, I really need help here in this particular area, if you don't see that or aren't willing to give him that respect, then it seems to me that that really is a slap in the face for the man that you have chosen to be the officer. I haven't heard a lot about boat ramp. I know that at one time I was told that the boat ramp collections paid a great deal of the salary, because without the collections, there wasn't any money coming in at the boat ramps. And that to me is an argument right there, that if someone is there Saturdays, Sundays, whatever day is the most popular, then they're helping to make their own salary back in the city. It's like building permits. We used to have a building department, and the building department supported itself with the cost of the building permits. That doesn't exist anymore. But the code enforcement issue exists throughout the city, not just in the CRA district. I don't think it's fair to consider the CRA district is the reason or the sponsor or the impediment. The city itself needs that kind of protection. I also would call your attention to the fact that sometimes the officers leave halfway through the year, 2/3 of the way through the year, the better offer is made for their salary, whatever. And so by having this part-time code enforcement officer or full-time officer, you're protecting yourselves against that kind of a situation, which you've had over and over again. So I guess I'm speaking from the pulpit. I'm also speaking from experience, and I wish you would really seriously consider it as a probationary effort. Try it for 6 months. If you come back and feel it's not paying for itself, or it's not working, or people are unhappy, then that's time for reconsideration. But if your chief is coming to you and saying, I need help in this area, and you people can help me make this city better, I wish you would reconsider your thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kelly. And I will say as well, I reminded myself in looking over my notes yesterday while we were discussing with the DEO representatives regarding this Carrabelle development strategy, economic development strategy, that we had a full house here from citizens of Carrabelle to develop this strategy right here, which Commissioner Millender thanked the presenter and said that this was a great job last month when the presenter came and presented this. On page 41, right here, on page 41, it says trash pickup and code enforcement. The City of Carrabelle can work with Franklin County and other local and regional partners to enhance cleanliness strategies and help establish a system for code enforcement in Franklin County and Carrabelle. And the project sponsors would be the City of Carrabelle and Franklin County and the ARPC. And this would be a countywide with focus on the City of Carrabelle. And this is what the citizens called for when we had these public workshops earlier this year. And the DEO representatives said that that code enforcement, and when I talked about, my main concern is code enforcement of the city-owned right-of-ways, and I explained that yesterday. They said that you have to have some form of code enforcement to have economic development. And that the code enforcement stimulates investors and developers to come in and to have, so that you can have economic development and that you can have job growth. And if we don't, for the very least, and we do strive for this in the commercial district, is to keep the streets and all of the areas clean. And we do keep the area, we don't keep the areas clean around downtown, ma'am? Okay, you were shaking your head no when I said that, and I need to know. Okay, because we do pay a landscape person extra to keep the areas, keep the downtown district clean around the businesses. Because you cannot keep businesses if you don't keep the area clean and if you don't do some form of code enforcement. So, and Commissioner Millender heads up our Economic Development Council. And that should be the main thing on that board's agenda, is to have some style of code enforcement throughout the city to help promote growth and development in our city. And that's what we have to have tax revenues to manage our city. And I know, yes, ma'am.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Certainly.
How many incidents are you having? How many code enforcement incidents?
It's constant. Constant. And you should come and sit with me at my office, at my home office, all day long. It's constant.
And so, but the police are handling it now, but
We-
can you justify the increase in these incidents, to hire another full-time police officer? Why can't you split the load between the current police officers?
We have one police officer per shift. One police officer for.
What do they spend most of their time doing?
You would have to ask the chief, but they do a lot of domestic abuse
Well, we get a
calls.
lot of calls.
Mhm.
But also too, what everybody needs to understand, it's a different process when you do code enforcement than it is law enforcement. Code enforcement has to go through a process. They have to be notified. They have to be given time to take care of it before they can be written a citation. That's not something that we do. That's where the code enforcement comes in. The follow-up, the compliance, that's where the code enforcement comes in. With us having different ones on different shifts, it's always hard to follow up. So we can follow up, but it makes it a little more difficult because of how their schedule is. So if you had somebody full-time, 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday, they could actually stay on top of things a little bit better.
How many police officers do you say you have?
We
5
have.
full-time?
Mhm.
5, and you need one more to make 6?
We
No.
have,
Since when did Carrabelle get so big?
Yes.
That now we need 6 officers when we had 3 back in the day. I know you're developing and you're making this place great and big, but y'all are ridiculous. Carrabelle can't support all that. And code enforcement, you don't want to fire? Well, why did you come here? Now lock me up. Heifer. And don't worry if retaliation does come to you.
No, Miss Kelly.
Best show in town.
Okay. Does anyone else do we have any more comments from the public?
Well, I see officers all the time sitting in certain, like, at the park, at the, across from City Hall, just sitting around. I don't know what they're doing. I mean, I see people speeding all the time. The officers are just sitting in their cars, talking amongst their, because their cars are like this, so they can talk.
There's only one case on duty at a time.
Right.
And one on duty at a time, so I don't know. I mean, I don't understand.
I
Is
think
it
what
the
you're
sheriff?
probably seeing.
Who has the most responsibility? The police, city of Carrabelle, or the sheriffs? Because I see sheriff's vehicles everywhere, not sitting around. I see the city of Carrabelle police cars sitting. I don't understand that. I mean, and to hire somebody else when, so you've got 5 officers.
we got a
Bring
chief,
one
we got
on
a,
as code enforcer. I mean, really, I mean, if they're driving around, the one officer on duty, because there's not domestic violence 24/7. And so, have them driving around. It's easy to drive through, and I don't know why the FWC doesn't handle that, for the permits for launching your boat. It's step-ups.
That is
No.
a City of Carrabelle code ordinance.
That's a city of Carrabelle ramp. That's
Right.
correct.
Okay, oh, okay, so,
And
I
we have no
never-
one to oversee that.
why they're driving around instead, I mean, cause I know there's not domestic violence 24/7. There's not enough crime in this city because A.J. Smith is taking care of the meth people. I mean, so you're driving around and you can see on the dashboards of the people that didn't pay for their
I will tell you that I have done that myself on the weekends. I have done it myself on the weekends because we had no one else to do it, and it just doesn't happen like that. It takes about an hour to check all of the, and more if you want to go up and down the right-of-ways. Miss Courtney's done it herself, too. We've taken turns on the weekends to do it as volunteer work, and it takes about an hour to do that.
And so you, as a volunteer, are able to write tickets?
No, all we do is put the little envelope on their windshield. That's what we do, because I can't write a ticket.
And there's another piece of that. We created, this commission, this board enacted a boat launching fee. And that boat launching fee intention, when it was initiated, was to assist with the expense of maintenance for that facility down there. Docks, the boat, side, etc. But over the years, on busy weekends, Carrabelle, again, in my feeling, we're a small town, but on weekends where we have high use, holidays, etc., we have hired and paid out of that boat ramp fee an off-duty officer to come in and make overtime. So we've paid for an officer to go down there and work the boat ramps.
That sounds perfect.
And it was,
Yes.
it worked great, and that's what we're wanting this officer to do on 2 of the full-time paid days would be paid through the boat ramp fees as we have done in the past. And they would oversee the boat ramp because the boat ramp is misused. The boat ramp facilities, are misused. The fish cleaning sink, they bring their own water hose and use potable water that we all pay for to wash their boats. They throw the fish waste overboard on the shoreline that everyone complains about. But you and I can't stand out there and tell them not to do it because we're not law enforcement officers. That law enforcement officer that acts as like a host, a dock ramp host, makes sure that presence of that officer makes sure that people don't discard their fish waste. And I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure you've heard the complaints from the citizens that of the nastiness and the fish waste and the bird droppings that go on down there because of the birds that are there. And someone that's an official image there helps represent the city of Carrabelle and make sure that people do pay their ramp fees, that we don't have parking violations going on down there, and that we don't have misuse of the facilities and the restrooms, as well as loitering and public drunkenness going on Marine Street, which we have put a couple of $1 million into recently, and we still cannot get tourists to come there because of activities that go on.
So that individual is gonna be there every weekend, every day?
Every weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Especially on the summer weekends, on the high fish season. And that boat ramp fee would partially fund that. So, and I like Miss Kelly's suggestion to consider a probationary effort. I don't know why Miss Donna Owens was so upset. I don't know what she's heard. We enforce our codes now on a complaint-driven basis, and it would continue to be like that on a complaint-driven basis. Except for the right-of-ways, which I have my own personal initiative to keep the right-of-ways clean. I mean, Miss Courtney can show a major complaint that we received yesterday of, she's got some pictures of the right-of-ways. And Carrabelle may be a small town, but you can ride around in other small towns in Florida and you just don't see this on every block. And so I don't know what else to say. I mean, a part-time code enforcement officer staff right now is very busy. Miss Courtney and Keisha, who are the 2 people that handle code enforcement, are extremely busy. Keisha's extremely busy with building permits, and they need assistance with code enforcement. And they need assistance with the follow-up of the code enforcement. Like this right here. You see this? That is all, there's mattresses, there's a Ski-Doo. That Ski-Doo's been out there for a year on the street. This is across the street from the senior center. Abandoned vehicles. I beg your pardon?
Can you ticket that?
They have been requested to be ticketed yesterday, complaint driven.
It's been there for years.
Complaint driven. Code enforcement is complaint driven, and we received a major complaint yesterday on this. And this is, ongoing. I mean, not just this site, but it's ongoing. So an officer would go out there, I'm assuming, and knock on the door and say, look, we've had a complaint. I'm giving you a warning. You need to get this cleaned up. I don't know if they give them 15 days or 30 days. I'm not a certified code enforcer. And then, I beg your pardon?
It depends on the violation, the severity of the violation. Some violations are 24 hours, some of them are 10 days, some are 30. It just depends on what the
Okay.
violation is.
And then they have to go back. The code enforcement officer, or it would be Ms. Courtney, they leave their desk, their assigned duties here, so people are calling them and people complain, well, they never answer. They're out on code enforcement. They've got to go back in 15 days or 24 hours or whatever to see if the violation has been taken care of. And then at that time, if it hasn't, then they give them a citation. They go back, they have to go back, they have, it's not something that happens overnight. Code enforcement takes time. And these people most likely won't be able to remedy this overnight. They don't have a place to put all of this overnight, and they were probably given time to,
She said she'd have taken care of by Monday.
okay,
So
very
we will
good.
follow up with her Monday.
Did you send an officer out, Chief?
I did.
Okay, so staff didn't go out. Yeah.
She's been notified
Yeah.
before.
Okay, good.
And
That's exactly.
I wasn't there, but according to the officer, after talking with the owners, she said that this happened once before. She got it cleaned up, and this is
There you
just
go.
slowly built up again. So,
Yeah.
So it takes constant monitoring. This is one example.
of many.
So, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Allen, to approve the full-time position. Commissioner Mathis seconded that, but he rescinded
Wait,
his.
hang on, this
Okay.
is, let me
Okay.
let me over-lawyer this for a second.
Okay, all right,
Well,
okay.
let me
Mr.
let me
Hartman
over-lawyer
wants to
this,
speak
just
to it.
because that was an interesting twist, right, that I've not seen before, is
Yeah.
withdrawing a second. So the way that works, as I was educating myself while we were talking,
Okay.
is you can't withdraw a second,
Uh-oh,
all right? But that doesn't mean you gotta vote for it.
against
yeah,
You can vote
Okay,
against
I
it,
got you.
or
I got you.
Commissioner Allen, your second goes with the motion. So Commissioner Allen, if this discussion changed his mind, he could ask permission to rescind the motion, but he doesn't have to. I mean, the motion's on the floor, it's been seconded. Now it's up to y'all to dispose of it.
okay, so we have the motion by Commissioner Allen. Do you want to continue with the motion?
I would, because I believe we need somebody to be available, and like I said, it started off with the pets problems, and that is a big problem. And so we said, well, if we're gonna do that, then we can have somebody that's not always picking up pets,
Right.
and he'd have things to do otherwise.
Okay,
It would be the best use of his time. And code enforcement that wasn't really what I was thinking about.
No,
the whole
and that's
thing.
just a portion of it. It's
But
just a
it-
small part of that job description. There's so many other things that he'll be doing as well. It's not just strictly code enforcement. And that's what I don't want people to focus on. That's just a small part of it. And just to clarify one other thing, there are 5 of us, chief of police and 4 officers that are on duty. I'm an admin position, so I work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. I'm the one that's doing all the office stuff, the phone calls, complaints, and that sort of thing. So we do have 5 full-time officers, but 4 that are full-time that are on duty.
4 that work the beat.
Yep.
One works one 12-hour shift in the day, and another one works a 12-hour shift in the evening. And they also serve as backup for the sheriff department.
And the sheriff department works as backup for them.
And we take calls for each other when other ones are tied up. So,
But the sheriff department won't take code enforcement calls
Yeah.
for us. So, we have that motion, and then we have the second by Commissioner Mathis. We've had discussion, and so I'll call again. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And those who oppose?
Aye.
Okay, we have, and so that motion fails, because we had Commissioner Allen in favor, and Mayor LaPaz in favor, and Commissioner Millender, Commissioner Mathis, and Commissioner Brown oppose. So that motion fails.
It's okay.
Do we have another motion that we would like to consider? Possibly to consider this on a probationary effort?
I have
Let's
an
see.
idea.
Okay.
Since the biggest thing here was code enforcement, and we all agree that we need code enforcement, and we have already in the budget, as I understand, money for a part-time code enforcement officer, it sounds like Keisha needs an assistant, maybe a part-time assistant a couple days a week to help her with her data entry and serving these notices. Is that something we could look into?
Keisha, I mean, and a part-time assistant would not be a certified officer that could do this. You have to have a certified code enforcement officer or a law enforcement officer.
Let me explain real quick on this, because this is there is like code enforcement school, code enforcement officers. That's actually, it's especially with a town our size, it's difficult to find somebody, get them educated. You put a lot of money into them, all this. By statute, sworn law enforcement can serve these notices. So that's what we've used in the past.
Okay.
So even when staff gives someone a notice of violation, it really falls on the police department to do the final real citation, notice to appear.
Yeah, we actually had a member of the public here several meetings back that volunteered to be a code enforcement officer.
But they got to get
Volunteered,
fully trained up.
and then that's right.
Yep.
They're
That's
not
correct.
certified.
And that's not
That's
not
correct.
a small thing. It's actually
Yeah.
more complicated than you think
Yeah.
to be sworn, certified code enforcement officer.
But we do have the option to still use police officers for serving code enforcement notices. So
They
it's not
can.
like we're not gonna have code enforcement by not hiring or creating this new position. I just don't want people to think we're downing code enforcement, or we're still gonna have code enforcement.
I still feel strongly that our police department will handle on a complaint-driven basis, and they do a great job. I have no problem with that whatsoever. They're doing a good job. I still feel like our police department is very effective. I'll put it that way. And even I'll continue to have some discussions with the chief, but I feel like that with the proper management and coordination, that we can make it along. That's just my opinion.
All right, do we have any other discussion? I think, Mr. Christopherson.
Well, I would just say that if that was the case, then the chief wouldn't be here asking for what he's asking,
That was my point.
because, he is in charge of the police department, and if he's seeing that there's an issue not being able to keep up with what's happening, then he's here requesting, so.
Well, I'll make one comment. I'm gonna take the high road. I was called out by several people here tonight about where my position is and how I feel. And, the slap in the face to the chief, that he knows that's not what I'm doing. I have a difference of opinion sitting in a seat doing a different job than what the chief's doing. And we have a responsibility, all of us do here. And that's the position I'm taking, and I'm taking it honestly. It's not a slap in the face to the chief by any means.
And also by the chief coming and saying that he does need assistance, and recognizing that he needs assistance. We need assistance at the boat ramp, official assistance. Staff needs assistance with data entry, and we need assistance with code enforcement. And these things are recognized, and the chief has brought this out. So this is all that the chief can do. All he can do is report the needs. Staff has reported the needs to me, and that's all that can be done. If the commission doesn't recognize the needs, then we'll just have to address it again in the future when maybe the commission can recognize the needs more easily. I don't know, what else to say. I'm sorry that you two ladies are upset, about the issue. I don't, I'm,
Not upset about it,
okay.
Is it totally justified? You said there's lots and lots of.
Yes.
Of code how much is lots of lots?
I
Can you
don't,
divide it between the
can you
existing
tell me,
police
Miss
force?
Miss
I
Courtney's?
know Keisha said she has 4 open cases right now. We have this one yesterday that's not on hers. That's 5 open cases.
5 open cases right now.
And you have 4 police officers.
The administrative staff does generally the follow work on it and
Why don't you
keeps.
just try it where you do, try to manage it a bit better, prioritize the force a little bit better, and try to deal with it as it is now, with letting the police officers that are existing today, deal with, the code enforcement. Why don't you try it, make it, maybe it's a higher priority, I don't know how the police office, the police,
Administrative staff right now manages code enforcement. Now, if there's citations that have to be issued, many times the law enforcement will go out to issue the citations because there's things like, dogs, that are dangerous, biting dogs that you have to walk past biting dogs to get to a place to knock on a door, where there's been, the neighbor has, complained about a boatload of garbage, household garbage that's not being disposed of properly, and the neighbor's tired of smelling it and looking at it. Those are the kind of code enforcement issues that the law enforcement officer has to go up and take care of.
I understand that, so why can't the police do that now?
They are doing that, but it's ongoing. It's ongoing, and then what happens then after that happens, then the open cases are managed by our city clerk, who is being overloaded. She has a workload, an overloaded workload.
Well, yeah,
And
it's not getting back to people on building permits a long, long time. I've got a neighbor who's very upset about that.
yes, I understand that, and I have taken some complaint calls on that. But all of our administrative staff wears several hats. So, and Ms. Keisha is our city clerk, our building enforcement, building permits officer, and our code enforcement officer, and our floodplain manager. And she's the secretary to this commission. And our finance clerk is our finance clerk, our human resources clerk, our property management officer, and she sells the cemetery lots and has to go off-site to show our cemetery lots. I haven't named all of the things she does. Our finance clerk does several duties.
How's this all been done in the past?
It's been done, but Carrabelle is growing, and as new people move here, they're requesting more things and more services from the city.
Well, maybe they just can't have everything they want.
That's true.
The other people who live here don't want to have their property taxes, their taxes increased.
That's true. I don't want my taxes increased, so.
Maybe we can do without some of this.
We do without. Why don't you drive up Baywood Drive and get a good look at what some folks are doing without up there on Baywood Drive?
Sure, I will.
And that's a 1.5 mile stretch of road that's needs a $1.5 to $2 million worth of improvement, and those people are doing without. When it rains, they don't have safe passage. They have one egress out to Highway 90. Excuse me. They're doing without.
Okay, fine.
If you want people to do without, drive up there and see people doing without city services.
We have,
So, I mean, a lot of people do without a lot here. These commissioners make less than $300 a month. I make $429 a month. This commission has not had a raise in 10 years. We don't want a raise. We're mostly volunteering our services.
That's wonderful.
Okay.
I don't know why you're.
we got
whining
another
about
item.
it.
I just want you to understand.
Oh, come on.
Okay. Hey,
No, we use some fees.
come on, calm down, ladies, calm down.
It's just, sometimes you can't have everything you want.
That's right. And you're preaching to the choir. Okay, all right. So, all right, anything else on this?
Item 5.
Okay,
One other thing before.
okay, thank you,
Um,
Chief.
Did want to inform the board that we are going to go ahead and advertise for the deputy chief position.
Okay,
Here in a few weeks.
All right.
So we can get that process started. That's a position that's already been approved,
yes,
with money budgeted in the budget for that. So,
okay, very good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for your presentation. Now, we have discussion and possible action regarding city purchase of flower arrangements for the deceased. And maybe we'll pick and choose on this one. Okay. So this was requested by Commissioner Brown. And so do you want to have
Well,
any discussion on this?
Unfortunately, this last year, we have lost several people close to the city, former employees, things like that. And I know one funeral, we pulled money together to donate to, or to pull together to buy some funeral arrangement flowers. And I know other cities, Appalach, lots of other cities, buy flowers for former employees or current employees or close family members, and I just think we should consider that. Maybe definitely put a limit on it, but
Well, now, I will say when I came on board in 2011 that the city did purchase flower arrangements for the deceased, and it didn't happen very often, you
Right.
know. I mean, maybe every 2 years or something, for, if it was a present employee or commission member, the mayor passed away, I'm sure we purchased flowers for the mayor. Longtime, ex-employees like we
Right.
just had. Now the one where we pulled money together, that was the wife of a contractor, you know, that's, I think that was more appropriate, not a
well, it just,
city
that's what
staff
made me think
member.
about it.
Or dignitaries, you know, and or even a retirement of a longtime dignitary, in the county. But then, a new commissioner came along and said, no, we can't do that, and it never came to the board, and we stopped that without it coming to the board, so now it's before the board. So do we want to allow flower arrangement purchases? I would say, I don't know, is there, you know, certainly not more than $200.
I honestly don't know how much a normal flower arrangement costs.
I don't either.
Do you have any idea? I meant to ask Miranda how much.
Nice arrangements about 200, you could get a nice plant for about 75. I mean, it depends on what you want.
Okay.
And we spent, you know, we've done $50 arrangements, we've done 75. We did a little more for the last one.
And the last one was a longtime chief, well, I think he was on duty here 11 years as a police officer and a past chief for about 5 years.
Right.
Just passed away. So, you know,
Hopefully it will not be often, but I do think it's important that we show our appreciation.
so I know, but now isn't this something that we should maybe do without? Do we need to spend this money?
We do.
We need to spend it?
Well, I think we need to be, I'll give my 2 cents worth. I think we need to be frugal with it. But I do feel like that we being the city of Carrabelle, show respect to our employees, our retired employees, and our dedicated volunteers on committees, but not extended out to family. That can get pretty expensive. But an employee, a retired employee, or a volunteer that participates in the benefit of the city of Carrabelle, that spends their time, like Miss Tamara Allen and others,
Or P&Z board, something like that.
volunteer on the city of Carrabelle boards. And I think it's appropriate. And anything beyond that, I think it'd be a good idea to buy a box of sympathy cards, send out a sympathy card. Now, for those that I just identified, I'd feel comfortable with buying a plant, as Courtney said, or a flower arrangement, something within reason, not $400 or $500, but we're spending the taxpayers' money. And something within reason, $50, $75 to show recognition for and appreciation for that employee or past employee or retired employee.
And you
That's
didn't-
just my opinion.
Right, I think it's very good, I agree, but you didn't include commission members.
Well, I just assumed.
And you know,
And
I
we
may,
don't-
I
we
may
don't
get
make much-
shot when I walk
we
out of
don't
here
make
tonight.
much
I
money.
want my plant.
We don't make much money anyway.
Well, I would consider us
We're
employees because we're on
volunteers.
the
I know
payroll.
it.
You want me to walk in front of you?
You got the red on, yeah, you can protect me.
Mel's got a hand.
Okay, Miss Mel.
I don't mean to go against the popular discussion here, but I know that the former police chief, deputy chief, officer during my term, they were looking for fundraising, and I don't know whether they would have appreciated $100 or $200 flower arrangement as they would have the $200 in the fundraising pot. It's not that I am trying to speak against the florist businesses which are new and struggling in this area, but I wish you would think perhaps something that might be of more help, whether it is identified in their obituary, donations to such and such an organization, hospice, or whatever they choose. Flowers, it's a nice token, but I don't think it has the value to a family perhaps that some kind of a stipend might. And so I simply raised that question.
And that's good. I think, you know, many times in the obituary, it says in lieu of flower, make a donation to the something cancer society or leukemia, whatever. And that's something that we could, you know, certainly do instead of in lieu of flowers.
I had thought about that today, and I think that's an excellent suggestion because that's pretty much customary a lot today. Either way we go, we're recognizing the appreciation of that that employee or that retired employee. So I'm gonna make a motion that we allow recognition on the deceased employees, past employees, or not past employees, but retired employees, volunteers of our groups, and commission members. And the amount, unless you guys have a different idea, I'm gonna say $100 and leave it at the discretion of the city administrator, whether it be a flower arrangement or whether it be a contribution to their charitable organization or whatever, and set the limit at $100, and let's see how that works.
I'll second.
Okay, we have that motion by Commissioner Millender. And we'll refer back to the video to get the actual wording on that. And second by Commissioner Brown, to allow purchase of flower arrangements for deceased retirees and present employees, volunteers, and commission members at a limit of $100. And it would not necessarily have to be a flower arrangement if the family has requested some other type of a donation.
Correct.
Okay, and that's second by Commissioner Brown. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, we have no new business, no old business. Okay, we have public comment. And I was slack on you ladies this evening. Public comment and even comment during discussion, you needed to complete a speaker card, and it was supposed to be limited to 3 minutes. But I do like to hear what you have to say, and the commission seemed that they wanted to hear as well. I appreciate you coming, taking time for your input. Do you have any further
Thank you.
public comment?
I just have a question about the speaker card.
Okay.
Just do one after that.
Yeah, and that would let us know your name so that we can put that in the record, and I believe they're out there by the agenda.
So you just fill it out, and if you don't wanna speak, you don't speak.
That's correct. Mhm. And and you did speak, and we don't know your name. Tell us your name.
My name's Julie Watso. I have a property on Bayou Drive, up to Timber Island.
Okay.
Benefiting greatly from the work that's being done on Timber Island.
All right, very good, and we're glad you came.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
I just have one other thing.
Okay.
The chamber was supposed to be here tonight to see about closing the road for Holiday on the Harbor, but he is not here. And since our next meeting is in December, do we want to maybe go discuss that? Because he may not have time to come.
When's Holiday on the Harbor? The 8th or 9th?
Well, second weekend.
12th, right?
And then our meeting is December the 2nd. So
I have the flyer here because I made it for them
I
last
think
night.
it's,
Just a heads up that they'll
Okay.
be requesting that.
It's
Do you
December 11th.
Do you need it on the agenda for a motion?
Yeah, December 11th.
We do it every year, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, it's not required that it be on the agenda. Something like that, administrative.
all
I
right.
make a
Well, then
motion
let's
to
just have a motion under public comment.
I'll
I'll make a motion to approve the closure for Holiday on the Harbor, closure of Marine Street.
I'll second.
Okay, and that's December 11th, right? Is that what
Yes.
day?
And he is coordinating with me on what they need in barricades and tents, and so we've had that discussion, and he's just.
Electricity.
Yeah.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Melander to approve closure of Marine Street on December the 12th for holiday, December 11th for a holiday on the harbor, second by Commissioner Brown. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, that motion to adjourn is by Commissioner Mathis, second by Commissioner Melander. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries.